Welcome back to the Self-Esteem and Confidence Mindset podcast with me, Johnny Pardo. And today I welcome Lucy, who's a new friend of mine. I met at a recent Awaken event where we were doing some deep diving work, and I'm really excited, having spoke to Lucy there, to dive into her journey today. And I know she's doing a lot of work with people out there, and really excited to share that with you today. So today's guest is a powerful example of what it means to rise from burnout and breakdown into purpose and empowerment. Lucy brings deep wisdom from her journey as a former high-flying corporate professional who faced intense burnout and multiple health challenges. After stepping away to heal and reconnect with herself, she briefly returned to the corporate world. However, this time she knew she had a much greater purpose. Now a global speaker, author, coach, and spiritual leader, guiding people through powerful mindset shifts, emotional healing, and deep personal transformation. Through her courses, programs, and one-to-one work, she helps individuals rebuild confidence, reclaim their self-worth, and step fully into the lives they were meant to live. So, Lucy, welcome to the show today. Glad to have you on here.
Thank you so much for inviting me on, Johnny. I was quite impressed by the sound of myself then. I was like, oh, so thank you for that.
It is awesome. It is awesome. Yeah, I love it when someone says that and hear their own story back.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're obviously doing a lot out there. Yeah, Lucy, obviously great to hear a little bit. You've been on quite a journey, it sounds like, and I know you shared a little bit of me. But yeah, you're in this place of burnout. You're working in the corporate world, and sounded like it was a little bit exhausting, or maybe that's an understatement, a little bit exhausting. And then suddenly you went through this kind of journey, this transformation, really worked on the healing. Yeah, could you share us a little bit about, was there like a certain moment that you decided it was time to heal? And yeah, how did you really begin that?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. So thank you for asking it. So I started working for JP Morgan many years ago. Sorry to name and shame, but I'm going to be really open. And I kind of got taken under somebody's wing there, and I became very loyal to JP Morgan. It's actually one of my strengths, I say, is that I'm very, very loyal to people. And I was extremely loyal to the company that I was working for, and kind of gave my life and soul for my salary. And I'm sure there are so many people out there that resonate with that. I knew that I had to earn money to pay my rent or pay my mortgage and my cars and all kind of things like that. So it was kind of like this commitment that I had. And I wanted to live a nice standard of living. So I started working for JP Morgan, and within about a year of me starting with them, I started to get quite sick, and I'd never been sick. I was quite ill as a child, like very young child, but then I was absolutely fine, never sick as a teenager until I went into JP Morgan. So around the age of about 24, 25, I just started getting really sick. My hormones were all over the place. I would constantly get laryngitis, bronchitis, tonsillitis, chest infections, and I got digestive issues as well. And but I never really connected any dots because I was working, I was, being recognized as an exceptional worker of JP Morgan. I got engrossed in the money, I got engrossed in the promotions. And then, a few years down the line, I moved from their Bournemouth office, up to London. It was the bright, shiny lights of London. There was the promotions, it lured me in completely. But what was happening over the whole time that I was working for them, over the 10 years that I was with them, my health was deteriorating and deteriorating and deteriorating. And at no point did I connect the dots of the fact that I'd never been sick before, because I never stopped and considered it. Everybody used to say to me, "Oh, it's just one of those things. Women have hormone issues, or oh, everybody gets digestive issues, or everybody has IBS." It was, and so I just accepted it. My mum had an underactive thyroid, so I just accepted that. It was, I just had a level of acceptance around everything that was going on in my physical body. And then I remember I was working for JP Morgan. I was quite senior at this point, and I was running projects for them in their technology team. And I basically had to help over a weekend. And I ended up working pretty much 40 hours of a 48-hour weekend. Like it was crazy.
Oof.
Implementing new technologies. There were issues all over the place. Every time I would go to bed, they'd call me. It was just absolutely crazy. And it was a moment for me where I was like, I cannot do this anymore. I'm going to break or something, something is going to break here. And so I went and found myself a new job. And so I went from JP Morgan to a European bank, and the European bank was like so slow in comparison to what I was used to. I was only there about 13 months. It was so challenging because I was so wired and I'd become so used to this fast paced. I had this year of slowing down, and it made me even more sick, believe it or
Mm.
not. So whereas people go, take time out, relax, enjoy it, Lucy, get a bit of your life back, it made me even more sick. It was like compounding things. So the guy that headhunted me at JP Morgan headhunted me for another company. And of course I was like, yes, I can get a little bit of that back. So I went over there, and that was the breaking point. I was
Mm.
working in a career. I was an executive director at this point, so I was quite senior. I really was the woman that was going to change the investment banking world. I was working on the trading floor. I was doing all of this magical things that they could see. And then my granddad died. He got diagnosed with something, got told he had 12 weeks to live, and my granddad dying was the turning point for me in my life. When he passed, in the last few weeks of his life, he kept saying to me, "You're not happy. Like, when are you going to shine your light?" And it was really weird. This wasn't his kind of language, but it started speaking to me. And of course, I lied to him and I said I was happy and I said that I was good and that I loved my work and I was happy in my relationship. But the God's honest truth was he made me start recognizing that I wasn't happy. What happened after he sadly passed, which was actually 12 years ago last week. So interesting timing for doing this. He, I started questioning everything in my life. And I recognized that I wasn't happy with my career. I wasn't happy in my relationship. My health was a mess. My life was toxic. Like I was a party girl, Johnny, like, working on the trading floor. It was constant parties, lots of alcohol, wine at lunchtime, if I ever took a lunch break, long hours, not enough sleep. And my whole lifestyle, when I look back at it now, like I have no regrets for my life. I'm very lucky to say that I have no regrets, but it was killing me. It was absolutely killing me. And it took my granddad to pass, and I loved him so much. He was like a hero to me. It took him to pass for me to stop and actually evaluate that I was sick. So, working for this company, I was over at Canary Wharf by this point, and working for this company, slowly but surely, I really struggled to go into the gym. Like I've always been quite an active, fit person,
Mm.
but I struggled going, and I kind of was talking myself out of things, and I kind of lost my lust for life. And about 6 months after my granddad passed, 8 months after my granddad passed, I burnt out. I burnt out so physically. My work thought I was having a mental breakdown. My mum thought that I needed sectioning or something like that. Not because I was angry or I was a danger to myself, but because I was like, I just can't do this anymore. Like, I don't want to go to work. I don't feel drawn to do this. I don't want to go there. My mum was really panicking about it. And of course, my company thought I was just having a breakdown. But the reality was, Johnny, I was having a breakthrough.
Mm.
I was having this moment of an epiphany of, Lucy, what are you doing? You're not in any alignment to who you were supposed to be. And that crumbling, that dismantling of everything that I knew and everything that I loved was the awakening process that I needed to be able to turn into the person that you see today.
Wow. No, thank you for sharing that. Sounds like the JP Morgan. I thought it was going to kind of like end at that, but then going through so much, and then the story of your granddad, obviously that being a big impact on your life, and then yeah, that breakthrough, and then discovering what you do now. And yeah, I can tell Lucy, like I feel, well, I sense like you love what you do now, and it gives you a lot of A lot of energy and a lot of purpose. Yeah,
I have no regrets of my past. I love the fact that
yeah.
learned how to work really hard, how to meet deadlines, how to manage projects all across the world. And the reason I love it so much is because now I've got a global business. You
Mm,
know, I have people all over the world that come to my seminars. I have people all over the world that I coach that come to my programs. And if I hadn't had that knowledge installed in me from JP Morgan, particularly, I wouldn't be able to do it now. I'd be overwhelmed. So, as
mm,
much as I've gone from lining the pockets of really wealthy people, now what I do is a very similar principle, but I help people go from where I was, which was completely broken. I thought I was completely broken when actually I had just gone into a cocoon ready to break out of it and come out as the beautiful butterfly and help transform lives.
mm, And some, yeah, massive transformation in your life, Lucy. I'm just curious, like for the individual who might be like yours was quite like there was like it sounded like there was an extreme sort of like burnout and extreme maybe low like and not feeling so knowing it had to change, people were worried about you. For the individual who's maybe not quite like on that extreme burnout and but they know like what they're doing in life is just not fulfilling, they know it's not right for them, and they're like something has to change but they're not quite, they're just a little bit stuck. Is there like, and maybe they're like, I just want to break through, and they're like, I just want something to show up. How
Mm.
can they begin to sort of like move forward from that position?
I love that question. For me personally, I work with hundreds of people that are at that point. They know they've got a purpose, but they
Mm,
don't know what it is. And I think that's the best way to describe it. You have an inkling it within you, and you know without any shadow of a doubt that there's something that you're destined for that's more than what you're doing, but you just don't know what to do about it. And from my perspective, the first question that I ask people is like, who are you? Who are you at your core? If you can actually look at yourself at your core and answer that question, and it's very rare for people to be able to do that, and what I mean by that is, what do you love? What are your passions? When do you feel the best? When do you feel the worst? Who do you like hanging around? Like, when you can actually just look at yourself with that, very quickly you will see where you are out of alignment in your life. But you have to be honest with yourselves. And unfortunately, like I was addicted to my lifestyle. I was addicted to the Louboutin shoes and the Louis Vuitton handbags. Let me tell you straight, I was so materialistic, it was scary. Now I don't have an ounce of that in my body. Don't get me wrong, I know that I need to have a lot of wealth for the soul mission that I've got, what I'm creating around the world. However, none of that stuff even intrigues me these days, let alone how much I was addicted to it. So I get it. We've got mortgages, we've got children, we've got cars, we've got lifestyles that we need to look after. However, if you can just silence the noise on that for just a moment and just ask yourself, like, who am I and what makes me happy? If
mm,
you can get to that peace in your heart, at any point, you will get a little intuitive message drop into you that will say, remember when you used to love singing? Or remember when you used to love drawing? Or remember writing that book when you were 12 at school and the gift that it gave you and the way that people loved reading it? You will start to get the messages that were destined for you that can't quite land right now because you're distracted. You're
mm,
distracted with your phone, you're distracted with your bills, you're distracted with keeping up appearances. So if you can just take a moment to just resonate with you and just ask who you are, that is where the breakthrough can take place without having to have the sickness, the disease, the passing of a loved one, or anything like that.
mm. I love that, going to the core. Something I've been recently implementing actually is scheduling 30 minutes of silence a day. So it's just like walking with me, and it's no phone allowed, going on the phone, because that's like one of the worst distractions. I think not just for me, I think for worldwide, generally speaking to people. But yeah, just being with like and it's crazy, and that excludes music as well. No music, not
No
even
podcast,
binaural
nothing.
beats. No, not even my beloved binaural beats, but like, or calm kind of YouTube sounds. But like, yeah, and it's just sometimes crazy the messages you get. and
It,
insights.
if we can just stop and pause for a moment, like people say to me all the time, Lucy, how do you get all these signs and synchronicities? And how do you observe all these things? And it is silence. If you can gift yourself, even just, 30 minutes is amazing, by the way. So kudos to you. If you can give yourself just 5 minutes of pure silence a day where you sit there, and it's awkward at first, isn't it? You kind of sit there and you're like, what do I do? But then if you can build it up and get to 30 minutes, your life will completely transform.
Mm,
That's where the messages come in. That's where, and in all honesty, that is how I learned how to heal my own body, Johnny. I never forget it. I was sat on a beach in Thailand. I'd got tonsillitis again. This was just after, it was
wow.
about 6 months after I'd left corporate. So I quit my job and I went around the world. I thought, what else will I do? Okay, I'll go around the world. There's no logic to what I did, but it made total sense now looking back at it. So about 6 months into my journey, I'm sat on a beach in Thailand. My tonsils are massive. So me quitting work didn't change anything. I had massive tonsils, all these white spots, and I sat there and it was too hot for my phone. It was too hot to do anything. I literally just sat there and I was like, right, what on earth is this about? What am I missing? What am I not doing, or what am I doing that is creating this? I wasn't drinking alcohol, I wasn't smoking cigarettes, I wasn't doing any of that. I literally was just in a moment of, sorry, that's an alarm on my phone. I was just in a moment of, I have no distractions right now. I just need to be present with this moment. And in that moment, I got a message of, you're not speaking your truth.
Mm,
Wow. And it hit me so hard. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I speak my truth, but I hadn't been. I'd been working in a career that had literally zapped my soul. I had been in relationships which were so toxic. I'd been drinking way too much alcohol, taking far too many party drugs, when I would be going out and things like that. And I was like, wow, you literally don't know who you are. And I was raising my voice on things where I didn't really need to raise my voice, but I was suppressing my feelings and I was suppressing how I'd been truly, the messages that I truly wanted to be speaking. And in that moment, I decided to change my mind. And I decided to start to be vulnerable, which for somebody like me working on the trading floor is really scary, by the way. It's
mm,
so scary as a woman that's had to fight for promotions and had to fight for survival and had to fight, to get on in life, to all of a sudden be like, hey, could you help me, please? Excuse me, do you mind? Oh, wow, I'm feeling like that. It's really challenging to do it. But what happened, Johnny, is over the course of the next 6 months is, my tonsillitis, laryngitis, bronchitis got less. And, the last time I ever took antibiotics, and I used to have to take them once a month, just as a point of reference before, the last time I've ever taken antibiotics was in September 2015. Never had to
wow.
take it since, never had tonsillitis since, never had any of those, what I call itis bugs since. So it
Wow.
started with the throat. I realized that I hadn't been speaking my truth and I needed to start speaking my truth. This is when I started admitting that I knew that I had a purpose. This is when I started admitting that the corporate world was not the world for me anymore. Like I loved it and it served a purpose. And of course, I had to go back there for a little while just to prove that I could be healthy in that environment. And I was. But that was the point where I was like, no, I need to create something that's going to help people. I had told my mum when I was 12 years of age, I just want to help people, mum. And she said, oh, being a nurse doesn't pay very well, Lucy. So, of course, I followed in my dad's footsteps and went into finance because we had a nice standard of life and I saw that as success. But it wasn't my truth.
Mm. It's
So,
interesting how the tonsils were playing up and how the body, I guess, was communicating to you and physically how it was manifesting in the body.
exactly. And the interesting thing about it is, Johnny, is that's where it started for me. But since then, a part of what my program, I have a health stream because what I got gifted when I realized about my tonsils was that my hormone issues were premised, or the reoccurring issue that I had where my hormones were concerned was premised from me being angry about my dad cheating on my mum.
Mm.
So I had held on to the emotion and I'd perpetuated this thing, which again I haven't had for as long as I've forgiven my dad for. And then the digestive issues that I had, the IBS was around irritation. I was irritated with people. People were annoying me. That I wasn't being heard, I wasn't being seen, I wasn't being listened to, I wasn't being appreciated. And then the other issues that I had quite bad acid reflux. That was about angry words. I was holding on to angry words. So, of course, it would come up and burn. And then the rest of my digestive system was very much about me holding on to anger. So rather than me saying to you, Johnny, you've upset me, I would hold on to the anger. And then what would happen every now and again? I'd just have a massive outburst. And
Can relate
when
to that.
right, okay, and I'm hoping a lot of your listeners will relate to it as well because we get told that that's crazy behavior. We get told that we're unhinged or whatever other words that get used. All you are doing is releasing stored emotions in your body, and those stored emotions are killing you,
Mm.
but they're just doing it slowly. Cancer, we've been able to identify processed emotions. PTSD, processed emotions. I'm really privileged with my work. I've been able to work with the Australian military. I've worked with all sorts of different people around the world. And the gift that we give them by unlocking this part of it, the emotions that relate to whatever it is that's going on with them, it's like they have a life sentence removed. I've seen people go from stage 4 cancer to remission. Like it has been
Wow.
wild because nobody taught us how to regulate our emotions, how to actually communicate our emotions, how to be vulnerable, and how to recognize your body is communicating with you every step of the way in every second of every moment.
Mm. It's a powerful communication, piece of communication that I've often neglected. But yeah, it's like I remember Louise Hay, I think it was writing a whole book about it. I remember just
That's
reading the
right.
different parts and
Yeah, that's right.
what it's saying. Not that I can remember what every part means or even a handful, but like yeah, it makes a
It's
lot of
really
sense with
funny. I
your
often
example.
I often recommend Louise Hay's book. I've never read it and I've never, but because I got gifted this. Like I truly believe I got gifted it. It was like messages coming into me. But I often say to people, look, if you need a little dictionary, get Louise Hay's book because apparently there's a guide in there. So it's really great that you've seen that and found it useful. You know, we need help.
Mm, no, it's powerful. Um, yeah, and for me, like we are talking about breathwork before the show. For me, that's like even like the change in the body sometimes when I've like been holding on to anger or something and then like screamed out to a pillar, just been breathing, and my body's gone like, "Ah, I know you do. There's many ways you support people through going through their emotions, but for breath work for me, it's like when that comes out, suddenly there's like a like it was like it's been like and then suddenly it's like I feel lighter and it's like such a release, just letting those emotions out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting. So Friday just gone, I ran a breathwork seminar, and a meditation and healing, and every single person said to me afterwards, "Oh my God, I feel like so much lighter." And it's because I'd literally taken them through all of their chakras with a different breathing exercise to just shift the stored emotions. And I let them know which emotions were aligned with it and what they were holding on to. So everybody kind of consciously knew what they were releasing as it went. It was just so powerful. And breath work, I'm a massive fan of it. A massive fan of it. If people are out there going, "Oh my gosh, I'm stressed," or I don't have my self-esteem, or I feel a little bit out of whack with my body or physical disease or whatever, breath work. I totally, totally agree with you. It has to be in your everyday.
No, I love that. And you touched on sort of like self-esteem there a little bit, and I just want to touch on the relationship you might have had with yourself, or maybe you've seen this with like clients or the many, many people you've helped. Um, do you find that actually when you stopped and could hear that inner voice within you, did that help your relationship with
Oh,
yourself?
yeah. So I hated myself. I'm as bold to say I hated myself. Like I always knew I was attractive and I always knew that I was fit and healthy and I was good at sports and stuff like that. But that wasn't that isn't what I'm talking about. Like
Mm,
I hated myself. I did not like the fact that I was so out of alignment with the person who I was supposed to be. And as soon as I stopped on that beach in Thailand, everything shifted for me. And what's fascinating is off the back of that and starting to hear the messages, I actually got a very big message a few years later, because I went on an intuitive healing journey, how to heal myself. And then a few years later, after I'd been living it for a few years, I got told, right, now you've got to make a course on it. And you can imagine the imposter syndrome kicked in. I was like, who's going to listen to me? Why is anybody going to listen to me? And they were like, you're going to call it self-love club as well. And I was cringing. The word love made me feel a bit ick, and I just couldn't get my head around it. Self-love club has now won a whole heap of awards around the world. It is a very, very well-known program. So for me, when you actually just stop and you ask yourself the question of who are you, the questions that I gave you earlier, and you just stop and you remove the distractions for a moment, I guarantee you will realize that there's actually things about you that you love that you never even realized existed, or maybe you'd forgotten about them from many years ago. And at the end of the day, this is the mission of our lifetime, is to love ourselves. If we can love ourselves, we can give the world the love that it requires. We can give our children, we can give the next generation, we can give the elderly, but it's about us loving ourselves so that we can make the world a better place. And I truly believe that no one of us is better than anybody else. We're all equal. We're all amazing. We're all a perfect divine piece of the puzzle. And if anybody makes you feel any less than that, or if anybody makes you feel like they need to be on a pedestal, like, check yourself. These are not people that you should be being around. We need to be around people that we're in alignment with now, that allow us the space to realize that you are amazing exactly as you are. I'm not saying there aren't tweaks to be made. If you're somebody who self-sabotages, like I used to, if you're somebody who convinces yourself that you're not a good person, like, that's a big tweak that needs to be made. However, you've been gifted this journey to remember why you are divinely perfect. And the way that you're going to figure that out is just by stopping and asking yourself these beautiful questions, breathing deeply. We all breathe too shallow. Speaking to yourself as if you're somebody that you love, catching yourself when you put yourself down, valuing yourself to go and do exercise and eat the right foods and drink enough water, and, watch the alcohol intake and the coffee and all the rest, just, being very aware of yourself. And that is truly what I believe our mission is this lifetime, is to become so aware of who we are that we can then pour love into everybody else.
I love that, Lucy, and you gave us some great guidance there in terms of how we can connect with ourselves. And I know you've obviously got the Self Love Club and men, and congratulations on that, and many other ways of serving people. So yeah, kind of like on that note, if the listener wants to find out more from you, or listen to more of your stuff, or get on board, really work on their self-love, their relationship with themselves, help themselves find more what they're meant for, where can they find you, or where's the best place? And is there a final point that maybe you want to emphasize for us today, or share again before we wrap up today?
Yep, of course. So I can be found on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook under Lucy Davis 2222. I also have a website, which is www.lucydavis.com. I do loads of freebies on my website, so go and help yourself to those things. I do loads of free content everywhere, but I also do programs that start at £11. So I do really, really cheap things, obviously, all the way up to much, much more expensive programs. So depending on your budget, depending on what you're looking for, I guarantee there is something that would be able to help you within your budget. With regards to a final point, I guess really my mission is to remind you that most of us live in our heads. Most of us reside up here. We reside in a place of fear. We reside in a place where we have to question everything. And, my slogan is actually from head to heart. My first published book is called From Head to Heart, because when you can actually go, okay, I'm thinking this, or I'm overthinking this, or I'm, over analyzing myself. And when you can just go, right, okay, I'm not going to judge myself for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that into my heart, and I'm going to ask myself if I believe that to be true. Am I really a bad person? No. Am I really not worthy of a healthy relationship? No. There might be things I need to do to work on myself to get there, but I am worthy of that. And I just feel if your listeners are people who reside in their head, which is, let's be real, 99.9% of the population. If every single time you find yourself getting in your head, just bring it down to your heart and ask yourself the question, is that really true?
Mm.
That would be my biggest recommendation for everybody.
I love that. Yeah, going from the head to the heart. Yeah, so it's always a work in progress. I'm going to be honest, but it's
Well, it's the
like,
longest journey,
yeah,
right?
it's the longest journey getting that head to heart. Yeah.
And it's so challenging, when you're around people that have different beliefs and, to stay in your heart when people are challenging you and triggering you, it's very difficult to do that. But the thing is if you just ask yourself that question, is this really what I'm feeling right now? Is this really justified? Then we can bring it back in quite easily.
Beautiful. No, thank you, Lucy. We'll be sure to link all your links in the show notes below, and really appreciate you coming on and everything you've shared openly with us today and the value you've given us. So thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, Johnny. I appreciate it. And thanks everybody for listening.
Awesome. So that concludes our episode for today. And remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.